Jambo, 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 fellow adventurers, welcome. Woohoo! Please come on in, have a seat. We're honored to be in your presence. I'm Mike Dooley, and I am with Tracy Farquhar. And Tracy will be channeling Frank, as you know. Due to the recording constraints and the broadcast worldwide and intergalactic, it's important that we stay seated, so that's why I'm not on my feet right now. And I'd like to welcome all of you and thank you for having the open mind and the open heart to be here. We are super excited about this. Frank has been, flashing and sparking and is also very excited to be here. So we will get underway very, very shortly in moments. And what we'll do is at first I'll kick it off with questions for Frank. And then we will be taking questions from both the live audience and from the those watching in through the broadcasting system. So let's see, how are you feeling, Tracy?
Feeling good.
You doing good?
Yeah.
All right. Well, a little quick summary for all of you. We are celebrating the upcoming release of Frank Talk's first book, Frank's first book, From Deep Space with Love, a conversation about consciousness, the universe, and building a better world, namely our world. And the book, as you'll soon see, as I anticipate you have a copy, it was part of your admission here, is one about understanding who we are and what we can do with our time and space. It's a metaphysical approach to life, which is nothing unusual, except that the mainstream doesn't use that term so often. Metaphysics is simply the science beneath all sciences that gives rise to the physical world. And just a few nuggets from the Frank book. As you likely know by now, reading the synopsis, I'm sure, the collective of Frank, 8 beings from a planet called Brohashka in deep space, about 1,000 years ago, their world was on the verge of systems breaking down. Political systems, currencies, their social systems. And it was because of, if you will, unwise or poor decisions that were made leading up to this potential crises. And through decisions made by, at first, a very few on Brohashka, that many in the world, their world, resisted, there became hope. And gradually more and more people let down their resistance. And ultimately their systems all collapsed, which wonderfully made way for better systems. And those better systems, which at first were thought to be, fraught with poor intentions by those who doubted them, actually led to what is now a rather, by our standards, utopian existence, where they have had success on every front, collectively and individually, in commerce and in the arts, and amongst their citizenry, cooperation, appreciation, openness. And as they developed technologically and in all other ways, including spiritually and through consciousness, they started to wonder who else is out there, as we already have been wondering who else is out there in the cosmos that we might be able to relate to, that might have a self-reflecting consciousness as we do. And more, after they discovered and found that there was lots out there, lots and lots, they wondered if anybody out there, any planetary civilization, might be going through what they once went through. Because while our ultimate enlightenment, I would say, is utterly assured, it might take many lifetimes, many millennia, millions or billions of years, we're eternal beings, so we got time. While it's ultimately assured, it is not assured on any given path. And I think the evidence of failed civilizations on planet Earth tell us as much. And so before us, just as it was true before Frank's civilization about 1,000 years ago, there are some forks in the road. And their intention would be, and has been, to find perhaps on a humanitarian mission, others about to make some big decisions. And they found us. Like attracts like. Many of us have kind of wondered if we might find assistance, if we might have more clarity with the decisions at hand for ourselves, individually, more joy, more happiness, friends, laughter, more money, or financial freedom, and collectively. And so it is not unexpected, actually, that they did find us and that we have found them. And the book, as is true of Tracy's first book, Frank Talk, available at bookstores everywhere, expounds upon some of the decisions they made. And more than anything else, what perhaps characterizes their shift 1,000 years ago that led to this utopian world was the introduction of spirituality into all of the arenas where systems earlier had failed. Spirituality into commerce, a recognition of our oneness, spirituality into hard science. You know, maybe there's room for an understanding of how consciousness, our thoughts, might affect the outcome of our experiments, which is being discovered right now by our scientists, and going much deeper than that. And so that's kind of what has brought us together right now. Tracy and I have worked for over a year on this book. Tracy did the heavy lifting. I was in the enviable position of asking Frank questions. And we are, I think we can say, very pleased with the outcome. I think you'll be very pleased with the outcome. And in part of the celebration for the release of this book, a Hay House hardback world release on Wednesday, May 9th, is this time that we get to spend together. I'll ask Frank a few questions off of the questions that have already been asked, but maybe logically questions that would succeed those questions, new questions. And then we will fairly quickly turn over the questioning to both the live audience and to the viewers in cyberspace. So one of the first, so let's have a moment of silence. That's me. To allow Tracy to connect with Frank. And it could only help if we all just breathe relaxed and deeply, perhaps with eyes closed, to create that space.
Yes, we are quite pleased to be here with you this evening.
Welcome, Frank. It is an honor for myself, and I'm sure shared by everyone in the audience, far and wide. Are you fully aware of what exactly is happening right this minute?
We absolutely are quite integrated with the process of this evening's event, and we are extremely excited to be here with such a highly conscious audience.
Well, it's our greatest pleasure and honor. I wondered, not fully understanding how you grasp time and space, were you able to visit these coordinates perhaps earlier than our arrival? Have you already previewed tonight, or are you kind of on the wave's edge with us right now?
Both.
Both. Pretty sneaky. Have you been checking in on us, perhaps, if we might say, in the last year since the book was begun, or was it further? Was it perhaps something we colluded upon prior to choosing this lifetime, which is a pretty fanciful thought, but
there was a long process in planning our arrival and ensuring that the energies surrounding our messages would be most beneficial to the delivery of those messages. In the work of the team that has helped to bring these messages forward, and in the gathering of the audience to receive them. And so there are no accidents in the way this has evolved.
And so I would take it from that answer that you've been working on this perhaps prior to our awareness of it?
We absolutely have, yes.
Well, that's exciting. And are we on time?
There is no time. But yes, this time is the best time of any, not only for the energetic support, but for the evolution of your planet at this time. There's never been a time where the population of your planet was in a greater sense of being poised to receive this information.
And in spite of that, we're not too late, because things are getting kind of wonky out there in the world.
Well, there would be no point in us being here if that were the case.
You would just skip on over us. See you on the other side.
This was not an easy process, you see. And so we would not have put so much effort into this if you were doomed.
When you look at us and our world, do you see us, in a sense, physically as we see ourselves with our eyes? Or do you interpret the energy in a different way? And do you see probabilities streaming from any given present moment? We may go this way, we may go that way.
There is a combination of visual, energetic, and sensory information that allows us to see you through the energy of our consciousness, which is being projected to you. And so while there is a visual sensation, it is not the same as you experience with your eyes. And there is an energetic sensation which allows us to see the possibilities in front of you, which is what we hope to encourage you to see, despite what you see with your eyes.
And do you see things as starkly as we see? Like, for example, if I mention the pyramids in Giza, do you see 3 pyramid-shaped objects that are aged by time?
We do, but we also see the energetic component of that geometric structure, which is quite powerful. I have recently read a book that speaks to the creation of the pyramids, several books in fact, and I know that it's a point of great curiosity amongst us, and perhaps will hint or lead to other questions. But the 2 different books I've read said that they were created for several purposes, one of which was to, at the time, amongst a series of other pyramids, some discovered, some not yet discovered, were devised to balance the energy of planet Earth. Can you weigh in on that? They are conducive to the balance of energy, and they are a part of that balance. They are constructed in a place in the planet where there are energetic vortices. And so those vortices are expanded and directed with that geometric structure. And again, this was not by accident. It was at a time when your civilization was much more in tune with the energy of the earth and the energy of the cosmos. It was just part of their energetic awareness. You have drifted quite far from that awareness at this point in your civilization's history.
Is it true that they were part of a series of pyramids that were scattered around the earth?
This is what we have come to understand, yes.
And when you say you've come to understand it, I often feel I want yes or no answers. But sometimes yes or no answers are not as readily available, perhaps not because there's a lack of knowledge, but because there's different pasts and different futures and probabilities and parallels. Can you explain why you said this is what you've come to understand rather than this is the case?
In your question was the assumption that we had seen them, these other pyramids, as they were standing on your Earth's surface at a certain moment in time. This is not exactly what our experience has been. And so it is a difficult process to explain when we are expanding beyond your perception of time and space. And so there is no yes or no that would satisfy that linear concept of time.
The other purpose of the pyramids, I was told, that particularly the Great Pyramid on the Giza Plateau, was that the chamber inside was meant for an individual, a human being, to occupy it for days, weeks, or months, and somewhat be catapulted consciousness-wise into other realms. Is that a fair statement to your knowledge?
It was only one of the reasons for the construction of those structures. It was more or less an experiment to see what that energetic component of that geometric shape would do to the consciousness of an individual. It was in some ways successful, and yet it was not exactly what was expected. And so while there is an element of raised consciousness which can be affected by that geometric structure, it was not exactly what they were hoping for, which was more of an astral projection. Was not quite experienced in that way.
Is it fair to assume that you have complete knowledge of the pyramids?
We do not. It is limited by what we are able to perceive in the element of consciousness that it comes to you, which is, again, limited by our perception of time and space and our limited vision of your history. We are more connected with the present time in the way that you perceive that present time, because that is what we have come to talk to you about. Your past is important, but it is not essential in making the choices that you need to make in the present, you see. And while you may have great fascination with these elements of the pyramids and some of these other mysteries on your planet, there's also much to be gained by sitting in the energy of mystery, see? And so, first of all, an explanation of any of these energies would diminish that mystery. And it would diminish the mystery of what is to come for you, see? And so we encourage you to find a fascination in the mystery, but to not necessarily search for the answers to those mysteries at all times.
Well, I think just to maybe justify the questions, oftentimes we suspect that perhaps within the mysteries may lie a key to our power and or things that we could now do based on perhaps what was done once before. But your point is excellent and understood. I know I would hear about this if I didn't ask one final question on the pyramids. And that would be the degree to which perhaps alien beings perhaps assisted. Can you shed light on that?
We can shed light on the fact that we are not the first to visit your planet in this method of a conscious transference, but also in the physical sense. And any being that exists energetically, consciously, physically on the planet has an influence on what occurs on that planet. And so, logically, would be the conclusion that there was alien influence that perhaps created the knowledge of power in that geometric shape, influenced the ideas to create such a shape, but perhaps the idea that alien influence has created the shape itself has been a bit exaggerated.
Bringing some of the questions back to Earth, I thought it was fascinating the discussions we had on the angelic realm. And correct me if I'm misspoken, but I gathered that they were, in a sense, part and parcel of our very adventure here. Just as we need a planet, just as we need a mind, so might we need, perhaps must we need, protectors or guides or other astral beings dedicated solely to us. They are not just there because they were passing through the cosmos. They are there perhaps with the sole purpose of being with us, guiding with us, and loving and helping us. Is that correct?
It is quite correct, yes. When you imagine the journey that you have taken to incarnate into this physical life, that you are a spirit being making a conscious choice to travel in this journey, which is quite fraught with challenges. It is essential that some energetic guide be present. Otherwise, it would be much too daunting, and you would most likely not choose to come here at all. And even with that energetic guidance, you often feel that perhaps you made a mistake. And so the knowledge of that guidance, the energetic sense of it being centered within an energy of love and support is essential for your continued progress through the challenges of the physical. The physical existence is quite a heavy one, full of dense energy, and yet the angelic presence lifts that energy up to a better understanding of what you really are, if you allow it. It is only one method to achieve that knowledge, however.
Do they help us whether we ask for it or not?
They are present and available, and in most cases, their assistance must be requested, as it is your free will that guides your experience at all times. It is very rare that any being outside of the physical would interfere without being requested, as that would interfere with your greatest gift, which is your freedom of choice making.
And what kind of levels of assistance can they offer? Can they find our lost keys? Can they pick lottery numbers? Or do they simply offer up the new ideas that we perhaps haven't considered yet?
Well, they are not annoyed by these small requests. And yet, their purpose is more in line with those moments when all else has failed. When your physical senses no longer can support what it is that you wish to achieve. And it is not in the essence of their being to create a solution for you. It is more that they show you your ability to find a solution yourself through the lifting of the veils which hide those solutions from you. And so with any assistance from the spiritual realms will be more of a support rather than giving you the answers. And so it is with great care that they wish to guide you toward the solutions, but not to tell you what to do. That is not the purpose of you being here for the duration of your lifetime, to be told what to do by any being, as you are the creator of your life through your choice making. And so why would any spirit being want to interfere with that, as it is a sacred part of your existence?
Do they help us as much in the sleep state as they do in the waking state? Is that irrelevant?
It is sometimes easier to delve into the deeper levels of consciousness in the sleep state, as the conscious mind tends to block any spiritual experience in some beings.
Mm-hmm. And you say to tap into this, is it as simple as asking a question? Are there rituals? Are there crystals? Are there tools? Are there any props that might facilitate this? And can you make a suggestion or two as to how we might best leverage angelic guidance?
We find that ritual is a very powerful tool in raising the consciousness. And yet, it is not the ritual itself, it is the intention behind the ritual. And so if you are feeling supported by some ritual, then by all means, practice that ritual. And yet, a simple question, an opening of the energy to the angelic realm or the spirit realm is really all that is required. If you are able to do that without ritual, without tools, it is not necessary. But in some of you, you may find great support in that ritual, and we will encourage ritual. We encourage you to practice ritual more than you already do. We find it quite beneficial in putting us into the state of consciousness which is open to receive, which is not your usual state of being. And so the rituals of meditation, of crystal energy, of music, these help you to alter your consciousness to the degree that you are open to spirit energy and to your higher consciousness. And so, yes, we will encourage that, but it is not necessary for everyone to do the same ritual to connect with any spirit being, including the angelic realm.
Is it true, as some religions tell us, that we each have a guardian angel, that sole purpose, function, and reason for being is us alone?
There is an essence of a being whose purpose is to support you in your life's path. And yet you will have other guides, other angelic beings at your beck and call at any time. And so while it is true that you will have what you may refer to as the guardian, it is not quite what you may think. This being is not guarding you, for that implies that there is danger at every turn. This being is there to hold you in the energy of your own power and to remind you of that when you forget.
Is it independent of us, or is it a part of our greater self?
It is part of your soul family. And it is a being who has agreed and decided to perform that role as part of their conscious evolution.
And I would then assume, obviously, we can ask for that entity's name and create a relationship with it.
You can. Understand that the name will be what resonates with you and not necessarily what this being calls itself.
I would therefore assume that the individuals from Prohashka each have their own angel essence and other angels to call on for guidance and comfort.
We do.
Do you frequently ask them questions? Do you frequently ask for guidance and help? Or do you get to such a state where it's just ever present and ever available?
We ask for support in the knowledge of our own wisdom. We ask to be reminded of what we already know. We ask to be centered within our own intuitive state. We ask to be surrounded with the energy of love and compassion. For there are times when we forget all of those things, as we are physical beings just as you are.
Do you sometimes forget to ask, or do you ask every day? Or do you only ask when you have slipped and fallen, metaphorically?
We ask when it is necessary. It is not a daily ritual.
Do you need, quote unquote, permission to reach us, to commune with us, as I have sometimes read other beings have needed permission from the angelic realm, etc., to be with us?
We do not. We only need permission from ourselves.
I've heard a lot about densities, vibratory densities, and the evolution through them, the evolution of consciousness through them. Do you relate to that? Do you understand that?
We understand that much better since we have been traveling in a conscious state through the universe. It is something that we have experienced energetically, and it is a very difficult thing to explain without experiencing it. But yes, there are levels of dense energy. Again, just as you may consider dark energy, dense energy, as a negative, this is not what we have experienced. It is all part of the whole. And so there will be energetic fluctuations in the universe, just as there are on your Earth, in the physical matter of your Earth, in the energetic surrounding energy of your Earth, and in your own physicality. Energy is in constant fluctuation. And there will be areas that are in a different state than others. There are energy pockets in the universe that we have found quite difficult to navigate through, just through our consciousness. It is quite fascinating, is it not?
I have often heard that we on planet Earth are third density, now at a crossroads moving into fourth density. Would you interpret it to be exactly that, or are those just the best words to apply to it?
It is a way for you to understand it intellectually, you see. And you humans tend to like to put that type of hierarchy on the understanding of energetic fluctuations, you see. And all other matters concerning the angelic realm and things that you would like to understand. It is quite a habit of yours to categorize things in this way, is it not?
It is.
And so, while we understand that need, is an intellectual process to understand things which are not quite intellectual. You see, the energetic realm is sometimes beyond what you are able to process intellectually. And so it is quite common for you to put these numbers on it so that you can picture it in your mind and you can understand it. So we understand why you do that. It is not quite exactly the way it is. There is a raising of frequency, clearly, in the shift that you are experiencing at this moment is a shift of vibratory frequency that you are experiencing in yourself, in your own physicality, in your energetic sense, in your world sense, in the universal sense. But we would not put it in that type of hierarchy, you see? We would not say that you were raising your energy from a less desirable place. It is simply a different state of being, which is part of your evolution, which is the natural state of being, you see? All things evolve in their energetic state. That does not negate the lower energies. It does not say that the higher energies are better. It is simply part of your evolution. And so what we would encourage you to do is to understand that all change and fluctuation is part of the natural state. Instead of thinking that an evolved being is something that is holy, something that is to be desired and worshipped. It is simply being in the state of evolution that we would encourage you to desire.
And the, for lack of a better word, vibrations that are now changing, that you have spoken of many times, on our planet and within ourselves, are they more conducive, these new vibrations, to any particular type of expression or of being? And what might we look for, or what might we harness with these new energies?
It is bringing you closer to your natural state of spiritual being. And into that natural state of spirit being, an energetic being, is love, is compassion, is a detachment from ego. That is not to say that the states that are in lower vibration are bad. It is simply rising into your natural state of being. It is more resonant with that natural state of being. It is more conducive to a shift of consciousness, which is more loving, which is more compassionate, which is more conscious of its influence on the whole. You would label that as better, would you not? We would say it is simply a natural state of evolution, which is not necessarily needing to be labeled as better. And yet we would encourage you to be open to it, as it is what you have come to evolve into. You have chosen this lifetime to experience this evolution. And it is quite joyful.
It is. And while it may not be extremely relevant, but I think I'm curious, are you and those on your planet of a different vibration than the majority on this planet?
We are. Again, it is not to say that we are better than you. It is simply a different state because we have intended that we receive the energetic evolution of our consciousness. We have become more aware of our connection to the divine. We have become more aware of the spiritual essence of being as real as any scientific aspect of being. We have been better at this state of integrating that spiritual aspect of being with the scientific aspect of being so that we can see the divine in both, which has helped us to raise our energetic frequency. We still have a long way to go.
Mm-hmm. So your higher, different vibration, is that a function of energies that changed on your planet a long time ago that you kept up with through wise choices? And that's getting to, is this planet changing to a different vibration and we must change with it, more loving, more spiritually aware, to stay on board, so to speak?
It is quite true that the energy of your planet is shifting into a higher frequency of vibration. But there is no requirement for you to go along for the ride, you see. It is a choice. Mm-hmm. And there will be those who will choose to remain where they are. And in fact, it is quite necessary to have those beings in that state of vibration, as it is showing you the contrast. It is allowing you to see perhaps what you do not want to experience, so that you may better choose what you do want to experience. And so those beings have their place, and they have chosen that path to balance the energy on the planet at this time. You have not come here with the karmic plan to raise the frequency of the planet. It is doing it itself. And yet, if you choose to go along with that, you will experience a different state of being. And as you experience that different state of being, you will be supporting that energetic shift in the planet. And you will be supporting an evolution which creates more love, more compassion, more awareness, which is more likely to extend the longevity of your species, you see?
Mm-hmm. Speaking of riding these waves, if you will, of higher consciousness, higher vibration, I've become aware of a school of thought that rather polarizes an individual's approach between being of service to self versus service to others. And this school of thought is quite deep. Do you see individual choices in one or two of those lights? Are those two major approaches to life? Service to self versus service to others.
What we understand that to be in our interpretation of it is a service to self as a microcosm of the whole. And so, knowing that we are all one being, but that we are also individual expressions of that one being, means that we must have service to self. That we must understand that care of the self is a care of the whole. And so, in that state of individuality, service to self is not a selfish act, as it is intrinsically service to others. Mm-hmm. When one is centered within the self, within an awareness of the divinity of life itself, one is more apt and more conducive to opening that energy to include others and to see others as self. And so there is really no difference that we perceive unless that service to self comes from the ego. If service to self comes from the ego without awareness, of others being intrinsically included in self, you are then becoming energetically imbalanced. This is now no longer service to all.
Mm-hmm.
It is in service to that which one is feeling one is lacking in the self. When one is centered within the divinity of oneself, one is not feeling that lack. And so understand that any action out of a sense of lack is created by a disconnection from the awareness of the connection with the divine, you see.
Mm-hmm.
When one is aligned with that connection, one is servicing the self and naturally exuding that service to all, because
Mm-hmm.
all are the self.
Mm-hmm. You've mentioned ego several times, and not always in a negative light. And I would otherwise like to surmise that ego managed, ego balanced, is a natural and almost inevitable part of one's creaturehood. And that I also like to conclude that ego is not something to be annihilated or banished from one's awareness. What do you have to say on that?
It is an intrinsic part of your self-awareness. In its organic sense, it is your sense of yourself as an individual. You would not be able to function as an individual without that sense of self. Can you imagine that?
Mm-hmm.
And yet, it has come to be interpreted as a negative, but that negative really is not the truth. When ego becomes imbalanced, it is merely because that sense of self is denying the connection with others and with the divine. And one sees oneself as a separate being.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which is creating that sense of lack. When we are feeling as separate from the divine and from other beings, we will seek to fill that sense of lack with perhaps material things, perhaps with a sense of being important, with a sense of being someone who can create change in the world through force.
Mm-hmm.
This is when ego-based action is not conducive to creating harmony within the self, within the community, within the world. Because it is coming from a sense of disharmony. But ego is an important part of your being. You come into this incarnation with it. If you come into this incarnation with something, it is not to be banished. It is not a mistake. It is not a part of your sinful nature to feel yourself as a divine and holy creature. And when self-love is actualized, that sense of separate ego does not exist. It is not to say that you will not be challenged by it. Even the highest degree of consciousness in a being will not be able to surmount that ego, which will sneak in to your life experience from time to time. That challenge is in how you respond to the call of that ego.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to ask you about how we all might be faster manifestors. And I don't want that to be interpreted from a sense of lack, because of course, wanting to be a faster manifestor means that you feel incomplete. But for example, you humorously mentioned you all, Prohoshkins, have a long way to go in understanding the beauty of the cosmos and all possibilities. So for you even, while manifestations might not require or include the desire for a shinier car, it might be for tackling denser energy forms that you found hard to break into in the past. So the question about being a faster manifester is not necessarily one pertaining to material possessions alone. How might we make stuff happen quicker in our lives, whatever our choice or focus may be?
We would suggest that you stop trying to make things happen more quickly. We would suggest that not be your goal. What we would suggest that your goal will be, should this resonate with your sense of truth within yourself, is to expand your energy to the greatest degree, to experience life to the greatest degree, to expand your joy to the greatest degree, in its own time, as you evolve. And so, allowing joy to enter your state of consciousness is much more effective than seeking it. Because as you are seeking it, you are setting a time limit on it. And if it is not coming quickly enough, you will be getting in your own way because you will feel that you have failed. But if you are allowing joy, you will find it everywhere. It will be found in the next second in front of you. You will see it where you have not seen it before. But when you are seeking it, it seems separate from you. And time will not move quickly enough for you to find it. And so what we would suggest is that you stop putting time limits on your life experience. And that you simply open your energy to receive what is in your highest good at all times. And then go about enjoying your day as it is presented to you in your life's path. For that is where you will find all that you are seeking, but only if you stop seeking it.
And I am sure this is how you have come to experience life and reality. And so that when you come across a dense energy patch in the universe, you joyfully, curiously poke around and don't set a goal to go there. Is that right? Is it goalless living that you experience, or how do you set ambitions or give yourself direction there?
It is not necessarily the case that we find this a consistently joyful experience. This dense energy was quite surprising to us. It was as though you had run into a brick wall. This is not a pleasant experience in any way. We did not find joy in the struggle to navigate that energy. In fact, we found it quite frustrating. But it is within that surprise and frustration that we came to an understanding that we needed to find a solution, you see. And so we needed to experience the contrast of frustration, surprise, perhaps a little energetic pain, in order for us to come to the understanding that there must be a way to circumnavigate this. We do not fully understand these things. We are not supreme beings with all knowledge, you see. We are still learning. You run into this dense energy yourself quite frequently in your own experience of life. And you will find that surprise and that frustration and that dismay when your energy is not flowing in the way that you would like it to. And yet it is all of those emotions which you label as negative that you can now decide to feel something better as you focus on the solution. You may not be motivated to do that without that frustration, you see?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So no, we are not joyful beings at all times, no, any more than you are. But we tend to find our way back to that state a bit more quickly than some of you do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, very shortly, I'll turn it over to questions, but I'd like to create the opportunity for you to offer anything that you'd like to offer before you are just taking questions, taking more questions. So do you have something that you came wanting to express other than just giving answers?
We do. What we would like to offer is congratulations to all of you for expanding your awareness, to stretching the limits of your belief system to include us. As we understand that is not an easy thing to do. We would like to congratulate you on the intention to raise your awareness, which is being demonstrated by you sitting here this evening. It is not an easy thing to do, and we want to recognize that within each of you. Some of you have experienced this before, and some of you are quite doubtful. And we bless each of those feelings, each of those states of awareness. But what we would like to point out is that if you are sitting here this evening, you are willing to change what you have been taught to believe about the world since you were born. And that is that nothing exists except that which you can see and understand. It is that stretching of your imagination, of your belief system, which is part of this shift of consciousness that is occurring in your world. You have all been talking about this shift for a long time, have you not?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You sitting here this evening is proof that you are participating in that shift. And it is not just because you have come to hear us. It is because you have shown up to hear something that is different from what you understand the world to be and what you understand the universe to offer to you. It is an intrinsic knowledge that there is more than what you can experience with your senses that has brought you here. It is an instinctual sense that the universe is acting in your favor at all times. It is an intrinsic sense of your own power and higher consciousness that has caused you to travel here this evening. And so this means that you are understanding your own power to create shifts in your own consciousness, shifts in the world, which lead to shifts in the universe. You are a participant. You are not a passenger. And so congratulations on understanding that. We are quite honored to be among you. We have come here because we are quite admirable of everything that you stand for. What you have already evolved into is quite remarkable. Do not ever negate what you have already created in your own lives and in the world as it is now. Do not forget how far you have come. And do not forget that there was a time in your life where you would never show up in an event like this. And think about what it is that allowed you to experience this tonight. We are quite humbled by it.
Would you like to answer questions now?
We would.
All right, let's take the live audience first, and what we'll do is ask you to stand in a single file line behind the microphone on a stand right there.
Frank, can you talk more about spirituality and the accumulation of material things on your planet? Is it okay to want to accumulate currencies, homes, cars, or is it a negative attribute on your planet, and should it be on ours?
It is not a negative in any way. It is part of the sensual delight of being in the physical, is it not? We would like to remind you that it's not the currency that you crave, just what that currency will allow you to do. It's not the physical accumulation of material wealth that you crave. It is the sensation, the feeling, the emotions that acquiring those things inspire in you, is it not? It is what you have come here to do, is to experience joy, to experience a sense of just feeling what it is to be human. And so there are many experiences that are being offered to you which help you to feel that aspect of being human. Why should you not seek them out? And so, again, we want to stress that the intention behind the desire is what will lead to either the fulfillment within the experience that you are desiring, or the sense of emptiness, no matter what it is that you accumulate. If you are seeking to fill an emptiness within, you will not get very far, no matter what you accumulate, no matter how much wealth it is that you amass. And yet, if it is to experience all of life in its many aspects of joy, you are more likely to feel fulfilled. And so, to label those things as negative, I think, is really negating what it means to be human. These things are not placed in front of you as a challenge to see how you will react, where you are not being tested by the universe to see if you can resist temptation. You're simply being asked, what is it that you would like to experience? And there is no wrong answer. And if it is a Mercedes-Benz that you will wish to experience, then by all means, seek to manifest that. But if you are looking for that Mercedes-Benz to give you a sense of purpose, to give you a sense of being an important person, you will not find much fulfillment, as it is coming from a place of lack within the self. You see? Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Frank, I have a curiosity I wonder if you can help me with. I've always been fascinated by the galaxies and the stars, and I've watched several discovery programs on what our scientists say is there, and they run into this thing they call dark matter. And I've recently hypothesized that it's possible dark matter may have some kind of correlation with the creative matter from which our physical entities are born. And I'm just wondering if you can tell me, am I totally off base, or do you even have knowledge of this? Can you help me?
We would say that was a very wise extrapolation of the information you are getting from the Discovery Channel. We would like you again to think of yourself as a microcosm of the universe. Where is your own dark matter? How do you express that dark matter in your existence? And what does that mean to you? What is birthed within your own dark matter? And how much focus do you place on that? Do you see this as something that is a negative? Now, we extend ourselves out into the universe, and we see dark matter, and it creates a sense of mystery and wonder. This is the first experience of what you are seeing on the Discovery Channel, is that sense of wonder and desire to understand. We are not answering your question.
This is true.
Aha. So, as there is a balance of energies within you, there is a balance of energies in the universe. You see? There is no one energy that creates anything. The energy that creates all things is all things. If you are intrinsically connected to the divine creative energy of the universe, then you are part of the creation of all things in the universe. That includes your own dark matter. It includes the dark matter of the universe, you see? And so there are many energetic forces in the universe that birth the stars. We will not attempt to explain that to you. We will leave that to the Discovery Channel for you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. And I feel you. I am a light worker, and I work with individuals who are in the last year to 6 months to weeks of life. What words can I give them that would help them in that transition, that would help them in losing the fear of moving from this earthly space to the next?
It is quite a divine work that you do, and we are in admiration of that. It is a gift to accompany a soul being into its natural state. It is quite a beautiful journey, and yet that is not how most of you view the death experience. And so it is quite natural to have fear. You are born with an innate sense of fear of death, which keeps you alive, you see, and yet you tend to expand upon that fear to the point where it becomes the ultimate tragedy. And so as you are approaching that ultimate tragedy, what else can you fear? What else can you feel but fear? See? And so it is quite unlikely that you will have the ability to unravel that lifelong sense of what the death experience is. And yet, in your state of being a light worker and understanding the natural aspect of this transitional experience, you can simply hold the space for this individual to experience that transition in whatever way that being chooses to do so. Because again, it is the choice that is creating the experience. It is going to happen whether this person is resisting it or not. And the actual transition will be just as beautiful for that being that resists this as it is for the being that understands that it is a divine and holy experience. And so what we would recommend is that you simply surround this being with the love and light that you know awaits them in that transitional experience. That you set the intention for them to experience that in the highest sense of their being. They will, but with your help and energy, perhaps they will understand that before they actually leave the physical. But do not feel that you have failed if they do not. There is never a death experience that is not a chosen and that is not a beautiful. Does that help?
Thank you.
If we might take a question from the internet audience now, is there one perhaps ready to go, Bob?
Yes, the first question is from Barbara. Barbara asks, what are the steps a human can take to also become a channel of consciousness or of other beings like yourselves?
The steps that one may take to choose this experience is first choosing the experience. Setting the intention for this to be part of your personal growth first. Again, we were coming back to Mike's question about individual growth as it pertains to the growth of the whole. This experience must have something in it for you or you will not choose it, right? And so, what is it about you that wants to have this experience? What is it within you that is causing you to desire that experience? If it is a need to understand yourself a bit better, if it is a need to experience the divinity of your being, then this will be a fulfilling experience, and you will be more likely to open to it. If it's a need to prove yourself as being some miraculous channel, perhaps it will not be so fulfilling or successful. And so we would ask you to come into the center of yourself and really understand the inspiration that is causing you to desire this thing. And if you are feeling resonant and comfortable with that desire, then we would ask you to set to the intention to open your energy to receive that information from whatever higher being it is that you wish to channel. We are perhaps simplifying the method, but the steps toward that really aren't that difficult. Those who have experienced a sense of this being forbidden or wrong may have a bit more difficulty in really opening their energy to receive. And most of you would fall into that category in one way or another. And so there are some beliefs that you may want to work on as fear comes up. Where every time fear comes up in this state of consciousness, it is something that must be dealt with, as it will interfere with the experience. And so it is trusting oneself, trusting one's sense of higher connection with the divine, which will allow you to open your energy to receive. Coming into an inner state of being sometimes requires some meditation, some quiet time, in whatever way you choose to experience that. And being supported in an energetic way with other beings around you is also important. Feeling safe, setting an intention for this to be a higher consciousness experience will help you to drop any fear of connecting with the lower energies. That is a good place to start. You can then see what comes in through your consciousness. You can try writing down what comes in through your consciousness. It is also a good place to start. See where it takes you from there. Doubt will creep in. The logical mind will argue with you that this is not a genuine experience, and it will be your choice whether to proceed or not, based on what your logical mind is telling you versus what your spiritual self knows is the truth. And this is where many people give up. This is quite all right, as it may not be something that is in your life path at this time. But if you are feeling drawn to it, understand that it is available to all. I hope that is a sufficient answer.
Frank, I would assume you don't channel. Your planetary citizens don't have gatherings like this where they channel other beings. You once said that you no longer meditate because you already have an all the time open consciousness. So I would imagine the purpose of channeling would be to get more knowledge. You more proactively go out and get it. Or do you now, or did you at one point channel others as we are now channeling you?
Here is the difference. It is more of a natural experience to us to receive information from higher beings. We do not call it channeling. It is simply an intention to receive higher guidance, which comes to us a bit more easily than it does through, for instance, this channel. It's not necessarily a conscious awareness of channeling within our civilization. See? And so it is more of a sense of requesting and receiving. It is not necessarily a sense of needing to come into an altered state of consciousness to receive.
Thank you. Next question.
Hello, Frank.
Hello.
I have a question about the shape of a torus, toroidal shape. I see, I've been getting information that it is actually the shape of our breath, and that it may be the shape that the expansion of our universe is actually a torus, so it expands and contracts. And I've been experimenting because I've been guided to use it with healing and with bringing peace in personal situations. And I'm wondering if you have more profound information on that and ways it can be used to heal and also to help people through the transitions that are happening now.
Can I ask, what is a torus?
A torus, it's an expression of infinity that it kind of wraps in on itself and comes back out. It keeps wrapping in and coming back out.
Again, there is a matrix of geometric shapes within the energetic universe. And those shapes often represent the flow of energy, which supersedes matter. And so it is something, though, that you must find yourself intrinsically drawn to, as you are, to really experience it in the way that you wish to. We do not have an answer that is going to satisfy you here. But what we would encourage within you is an expansion of your intuitive sense of what this shape represents in your intentional healing work. What we would recommend that you see within this shape is the expansion of energy and the contraction of energy, which is a constant within all life forms, within all energetic senses of matter in the universe. All things are created by a constant fluctuation of expansion and contraction. And there are many ways to represent that. And if you are feeling drawn to that sense of energy, then it is quite profound to you in the work that you are doing. And so as a healing modality, you are helping the individual to express their own expansion and contraction of energy, which is helping them to feel more powerful within the intentional expansion, the intentional contraction. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I think so. Thank you.
Another question, Bob, from the internet.
Our next question is from Sandy. Sandy asks, what is the most important thing that we Earthlings can do at this time to move this lovely planet forward in consciousness and transformation? How can we help?
It is simply being aware, number one, that consciousness is moving forward. It is simply being aware that consciousness is evolving within yourself and within the world. You cannot be aware of that when you are focused on what you feel is a backward movement, which is what you are seeing with your eyes at this moment on your planet, is it not? How can you continue to believe and be aware of this conscious evolution when the contrast of that is being shown to you in the physical senses? This is your challenge at this time, is it not? This is where the polarity is occurring. And so what you can do is be centered and anchored in what you know to be the truth, what your intrinsic intuitive senses, your higher awareness is telling you, which is, yes, we are evolving consciously, despite what we are seeing over here, which is a de-evolution of consciousness. If you buy into that as truth, you are not necessarily doing your best to contribute to that conscious evolution, you see? And so it is focusing on that which you intrinsically know to be truth within yourself, again, as a microcosm of the whole. How is this showing up in your own life? Can you become aware of your own conscious evolution despite the challenges you may be facing at this time? Can you see how you're evolving into a different state of being every time you overcome one of those challenges? Can you see how that has already shown up in your own life? Isn't that evidence enough that you are a consciously evolving being at all times? Now, expand that awareness into your civilization as a whole. Can you focus on how the conscious awareness is continuing to evolve, not despite the things that are challenging you, but because of them? Can you feel the joy in your heart for being able to see that? Can you marvel at the human capacity to overcome what seems to be impossible odds? Can you look at those who stand up and rise up and speak up for what they believe as truth, as proof of that evolution? Can you see that in your history? Can you see that now? Focus on that, and you will be the trailblazer in creating the new world. And you are all already doing this. Does not mean that you don't slip. Does not mean that we don't. But when we are reminded, when we remember to look at ourselves as divine beings and to see where we have come from, then we can celebrate the joy of what we are presently creating. And we can feel it and see it, despite what others want you to believe.
Thank you. Kimmy.
Thank you, Mike, for hosting, and thank you, Frank, for mentoring us through this exciting, unique, challenging, joyful time. Mike has spoken of the dissolution of your currency system on your planet as one of the key parts of an energetic shift to a more joyful experience. What was a key early step that you perhaps took in moving from a currency-based system to an eventual, perhaps what we call cashless way of life?
It was perhaps what you would label as a collapse of that system. It was an understanding that that system no longer was relevant, as it had contributed to the de-evolution of our society as a whole. It was no longer serving the purpose for which it was intended. It was becoming a vehicle for the ego to become imbalanced within the consciousness. It was creating a division of the haves and the have-nots. And it was creating desires which were out of balance with higher consciousness. Again, it is not to say that a material desire is necessarily creating imbalance, but it was the monetary system which created a sense of wanting to hold the individuals in a state of lack, so that they would constantly be striving for material gain. Within that system was much suffering, both from those who could not attain a certain degree of wealth and from those that did. Can you relate to that?
Yes.
Can you imagine your world without that? Can you imagine the freedom of inspirational creation that would be allowed in a system that is no longer based on material wealth? Can you imagine the creative expression that would be encouraged among those who do not need to amass wealth to live? Can you imagine the cooperative aspect of all beings who intrinsically and from an intuitive sense of compassion support each other? Is that not what you all hope for? And while the dissolution of the currency system was quite helpful in getting us to that point, it was not the only thing. And it was not an easy process. But what we would encourage for you now is to see if you can create a different relationship with your monetary system as it is now. See if you can begin to shift some of the old beliefs about money into more of a sense of an energetic exchange rather than a material one. This shift in the importance of that system may lead you to a point where the system itself can change. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Bob.
Our next question is from Kelly. Kelly asks, is Jesus consciousness or other past gurus accessible to us as you claim you are to us?
It is not only accessible to you, it is you. The divine consciousness is who you are. The individuals who came to Earth as the teachers were simply setting the intention to bring their wisdom to the masses. And so their divinity is just the same as yours. It was their intention that was different, you see. And so seeing the consciousness of these individuals as something to aspire to is quite a desirable thing. It is something that you may want to achieve. And yet understand that it is not beyond your reach. It is not something that needs to be seen as separate from you. It is you. You have simply covered it up with a belief system that says that you are less than that. And so when you think of the teaching of Jesus or Buddha or any other divine teachers, what is it that those teachings are all based in? Loving compassion, community, sense of oneness. Is that not your own truth? And so it is accessible to you when you remove the belief system from your consciousness that says that you are not able to achieve it, that you are simply this lowly human who cannot connect to anything that is intrinsically divine and holy. That is not why these teachers came to be worshipped, to be seen as separate from you. Their teaching was all about us being connected. And yet you insist on placing them on a higher state of being than yourself. I can tell you that that is not what they wish from you. As you experience the divine within, you're expressing your appreciation for their teaching. That is what they have come to achieve and what they continue to work with you in achieving on this earth and in all the universe. See?
Thank you. Christiana.
Hi, Frank. I just first want to express my deep gratitude for the efforts you've undertaken to do this, and deep gratitude for that previous answer that you just gave that really touched my heart. I am just excited to see where this book is going to go, as it led to a thinning of veils for me, and I think it will for many others. My question is, as a sensitive person, and as many other sensitive people are present in this room, do you have any advice that you would give those of us who feel energy quite intensely during these transitioning times to make the path ahead a little bit more easy?
It's a good question. And again, it is that sense of being a sensitive being, which can sometimes be labeled as a negative within your society, is it not? And yet it is that sensitivity which allows you to experience the full richness of your being, not only your own being, but your connection to all others. And while this is a divine state, it can be quite challenging as you connect with the challenges of others as well as their joys. You connect to the pains of others as well as their inspirations. That experience, again, is dictated by your intention, as every other experience will be. And so, what we would recommend to any of those who are feeling the challenge in their own sensitivity is to set a very clear and defined intention for what it is that you wish to do with that sensitivity. It is not your job to cure the ills of others by experiencing them yourself. It is not your job to remove the challenges from others as you take them on yourself. It is simply your job to hold the space and energetically for that being to evolve into whatever it is that they choose to evolve into. And through that sensitivity will come a higher awareness of what that individual may need to be the best version of themselves, which, again, you can only support. You cannot give them that experience. If you take it upon yourself to heal, to guide, to teach, you are now creating an energetic exchange which cannot be beneficial to your own energetic state. If you set the intention to support, to extend loving compassion, to set the intention for the other being to be in a state of higher awareness of their divinity, to let them see that in your own eyes. They can then choose their own path. And you are no longer carrying that burden in your own energetic field. And so the intention will guide the experience. Understand that where your attention goes is guided by your intention and what you want to do with your sensitive, energetic awareness. Does that answer your question?
I was also kind of wondering if you had any advice for the physical, like what are we supposed to do with what we're dealing with in our bodies?
Mm-hmm.
I know
Gentle with them, yes. Treat them well. Appreciate that physical aspect. It is just as divine as the energetic aspect of who you are. You have chosen to experience this incarnation into the physical matter, which is, just as we were speaking about before, dense energy. Your spirit being smashed into this dense energy, which is quite uncomfortable. Why do you think babies cry? This is not a comfortable experience to go from an energetic state into a physical, heavy, dense state of being. Why did you choose this? And then resist it every moment of the day. How can you create joy in that experience? There's an appreciation of the physical body in whatever state it is in, whether it is your friend or not, whether it is serving you or not, whether you are a healthy state of being or not. Can you experience joy in simply being in the physical state? You chose it. Appreciate it. Stop fighting it and resisting it, criticizing it, picking it apart in every way you can. Love it. It is not easy when it causes you physical pain, clearly. And yet, that is also part of the experience. What is it that you can gain from that? You're not going to be able to see that while you are in pain. But you will be able to experience, hopefully at some point, a cessation of that pain. What a joy that is, yes?
Thank you, Frank. If I could hug you, I would.
Bob, from the internet.
This question is from Hi. What is the best way to care for people who have been diagnosed with dementia and who are in distress and seem to be suffering enormously?
It is, first of all, by understanding that your interpretation of their experience may not be what they are actually experiencing. Understand that all experience is being interpreted through your physical brain, which has been programmed by your own experience and understanding of the world. You must understand that this is a limited source of information for you, yes? It is miraculous and divine in its own state. Yet it is not the whole truth. And so, while it is true that you will see a state of suffering within these individuals, understand that in that state of what you define as dementia is a constant fluctuation of consciousness, which is bringing them in and out of what you deem to be the physical conscious experience of this incarnation. the way that you experience this physical incarnation is in quite a steady state of energetic fluctuation. You're understanding each moment as it occurs. You're choosing to look back, to look forward, to be in the present. Those that are experiencing what you label as dementia are traveling between widely fluctuating experiences of dimensional reality. And it can be quite confusing because it is not what we would experience in a natural state of incarnated being. Understand, though, that there are also quite joyful experiences within that dementia when those beings are able to connect with lost loved ones, with joyful experiences in their past, with a sense of what is to come in the spiritual state of being that they are traveling to eventually. Those moments of suffering and confusion are temporary, and it is only within the conscious brain waves that are resisting that traveling that suffering occurs. And so do not always believe what you are interpreting others' experiences to be. Because it is not something that you could understand unless you are experiencing it yourself. And even then, you would not be able to explain it to anyone. Also understand, this is quite important, that the spirit being has chosen that experience, just as you have chosen this incarnated experience. Again, this may not make much sense to you. And so it is essential that you have faith in the idea of choosing experience for the betterment and evolution of your soul being. And so that means there is something in it for them, whether you can understand it or not. Do not suffer with them. Simply love them in whatever state of being they are in. Just because they are not the same as you remember them to be does not make them any less than what they were. They are still divine and holy beings on this planet. And as they transition through this gentle state of detachment from the physical, they're coming closer to their spiritual essence. And it will be a beautiful experience to them, whether it is or not for you.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, Frank and Mike. I just discovered you guys recently, so I'm really thrilled to be here.
We just discovered you guys recently as well.
That's cool. I had an experience that I could not typically talk to too many people about, and I would love, excuse me, your perspective. I ride horses, and I fell off one of my horses and was injured pretty bad. And it left me with such intense fear that to get back on took everything I could. And thought of taking drugs to do it, but I didn't. And one day I had it. And I went out in our pasture and I yelled at spirit or anything that would hear me. And I didn't understand. I was like so upset. And I said, I'm a mom. I don't want to be injured. And I want to ride my horses. I want to be with them and one. I heard a voice outside of my head that said, what do you want? And I didn't even think twice. I didn't look around the bushes to see if somebody was playing a joke on me. I answered back and I said, I want to ride like an Olympic gold medal rider. And the spirit or whatever answered back and said, so be it. I saw what I would call a large ball of light come out of the sky. I wasn't afraid. It hit me on the head, rippled through my body. I had the most incredible joy come over me. I went and rode the horse that I fell off of. And I'm in one with her. I'm riding like an Olympic level rider. What happened? How can you have such a shift? And when we talk about there's no time, but I mean, this is like probably less than 10 minutes in our time that I went from fear to confidence and oneness, and it's still with me. It's like, holy smokes. And can we tap into this into other areas of our lives?
What do you think happened?
The energy that came down, because later when I wrote, I was actually with a friend, and she stopped me because she's like, what's going on? Because you changed. Before you were in fetal position, and now you're in the upright, correct position, as they say. And she says, oh my gosh, you look like that dead guy that won all the Olympic gold medals. And then what I interpreted is that some energy from that person came to me, and I just assimilated it.
That person is you.
Okay.
It's a beautiful example of being in the fetal position in fear and becoming aware of your own power. So it's not what you may be understanding as an external force. You were calling upon your own intrinsic wisdom of your own divinity. And yes, you were supported from some spiritual force, but it is not that force that created the shift within you. It was an understanding of your own power to make a different decision and choice about where you wanted to be. And so you needed to be reminded of what that was that you wanted, because all you were focusing on at that time was fear. And fear will blind you to what it is that you want. How can you be focused on what you want when you are lying in a fetal position in fear? And so you asked to be shaken up to understand it happened, and now you are asking how that happened?
I guess I should go in gratitude, which I have. I've been very appreciative.
What?
So is my horse.
Be in joy for what it was. Be in wonder for what it was. And understand that you initiated this. Whether it was an external force or not, it was something that you initiated with your energetic intention. When you were ready to shift out of fear, some power was ignited to bring you into the sense of what you desired. But you had to state what that was, bring the emotional force through your physical being into your energetic being, and make the choice to move beyond the fear. What a beautiful example of that, no? Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Bob?
This question is from Tom. Frank, if the shift is happening, and if there are no mistakes, and our best act is to allow the evolution of ourselves, why should we work to eradicate racism, sexism, and other forms of what we believe to be wrongs? Couldn't one conclude that those systems are part of people's choices in this lifetime that will help each person along their own journey to become their best selves?
Understand that the shifting of consciousness, which is leading you again to a higher frequency of energetic awareness and bringing you closer to that spiritual essence which incarnated into the physical, It is within that natural state of spiritual awareness that the highest degree of love and compassion dwells. Anything that is not in alignment with that natural state of being is not going to feel good to you. It is not going to feel good for the planet. It is not going to create harmony within the whole. And so, through the shift of consciousness to a higher level of vibrational awareness, is a natural evolution toward wanting to be more loving and compassionate. It will not be a natural state of being to judge, to hold back, to persecute others, because there is an intrinsic understanding that in doing so, one is judging, persecuting oneself. And so to say that it is part of the natural experience, there is some truth to that. And yet, why would you prevent yourself from feeling the natural state of compassion and love that is intrinsic within you? Understand that all of those things that have just been mentioned were learned behaviors. They are learned behaviors and belief systems that are not serving you or anyone. And it is through the higher awareness that you are understanding that more and more. And that you are evolving past the need to have those systems in place in your planet. For they are holding you back from your natural state of evolution. They are creating a separateness which is negating what you know to be the truth. But, yes, they are serving a purpose. That purpose may be to create that sense of rising up against it to a higher truth.
It might be that the questioner was asking, in addition to our own waking up and abolishing those kind of perspectives, would it be appropriate at this time to have laws and perhaps mandate the abolition of racism, sexism, etc.? I think maybe that might be a tangent of that question, to impose it on those who are not ready to give it up.
Again, that is part of the uprising, is it not? To speak up and say this is not allowed in our society. And that is what a law is it not? And so it is representative of that rising up when laws come into place to abolish those things which are no longer resonating with our sense of oneness, compassion, and love. Now, we know that those laws are not always successful in what we would like them to achieve, and yet it is an important signpost, as it will, for the evolution of consciousness as a whole. However, even when there are no laws, higher evolving consciousness in the individuals who are understanding the need to be more loving and compassionate will just naturally evolve to the place where those things are not needed, you see? And so at this time, there is a higher understanding, for instance, of the equality between men and women, is there not, than there was 10 years ago or 50 years ago. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And so if the laws were abolished to create more equality for women, would those higher consciousness beings devolve into a state of persecuting women? This is quite unlikely.
Mhm.
And so, with the abolishment of some laws that you are seeing now, is also the understanding that that is not creating the experience of de-evolution, simply because these people are not being told what they should do.
Mhm.
They're acting within their own higher consciousness to know what is right and what is resonant and what is more representative of their higher consciousness, which is centered in oneness.
Thank you. I should announce that we have 5 minutes left, and at that point we will need to give Tracy a rest, and we will call it a night. But there are 5 minutes left, so the next live questioner, please.
Well, hi. I'm very grateful to be the last person to be able to speak with you, Frank. I loved everything that you said, and I feel so connected to your message. It might be from your planet, I don't know. So about a year ago, I had an experience with a shaman who removed an entity from me, apparently. And I'm already an alternative healer and energy worker. But when I had this experience, it was very physical, to the point where I felt the soreness on my arm, even though she didn't touch me. And this year, I set the intention for my awareness to be expanded as far as possible. And it has. And I've been working on people in their energetic field and picking up tons of information. And sometimes it floods me. I can't control it. And recently I've been kind of questioning this idea of entities attaching to people. And normally, if you would have talked to me a year ago, I would have been like, no, that's crap. But I've experienced it myself working with people's fields where I'll feel something that's not theirs in their energetic field and work to remove that. And I've also had a friend of mine who's a psychic, and she perceives dark energy and vampires and fallen angels and all these things that can get stuck to people. And that's kind of, I don't know if I'm kind of at this place where what is that? Is that true? I don't understand it completely.
It seems to me that you are externalizing quite a bit of your life experience into something separate from you. What we are hearing is a sense of not being in control of something that is occurring within you. It was within the words that you just used. And what we would encourage you to examine is that sense of not being in control of something that is happening to you. How does that resonate with your sense of your own power? When one is feeling at the mercy of something external to you, it is going to feel as though it were an entity, you see?
So when I've worked on people in that, it doesn't happen every time, and then work with energy to clear that from them, and they feel better and the room feels better. What is that then?
Isn't it an amazing example of the power of consciousness?
So
the energetic state of consciousness within that individual has created a palpable sense of something separate to that individual, because that is what they believe it to be. And it is what you are believing it to be. That does not negate the experience of healing that has occurred. And understand that that experience is because they have believed it to be a removal of that energetic entity in whatever form or shape that it is that they believe it to be. It is simply an expression of one's own energetic state. It is not necessarily something that is separate, but if they believe it to be, that is how it is going to be experienced. And in that case, it is real. Is it not?
Okay. Yeah, so that does make sense. That resonates with me. So so my friend who is a psychic or practice her
A little
livelihood is
louder.
a psychic. Her livelihood is she works as a psychic and she perceives these fallen angels and she goes into very many different types of these dark energies that can get attached to people. Is that just a projection of her own darkness? And
Again, understand that the understanding of these experiences is being computed through the very logical intellectual brain, which has its own belief systems about what that experience is. And so something that can be an expression of what is perceived as negative may be experienced and interpreted as a negative entity, because that is the only way that the brain can explain it. The brain has trouble explaining energy.
so it's a symbol for what she's picking up on. I see. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. It's 9 o'clock now. It's been 2 hours. Frank, Tracy. Okay, we will call it a wrap. We would like to have perhaps 10 minutes for Tracy to come back. And at that point, we will do book signings over here. We say good night to all of our friends on the internet right now. And for those who would like to stay for a book signing, please feel free to do so. Maybe take a 10 to 15-minute break right now. And during this 10 minutes, we will not be asking Tracy or Frank any questions. We'll just let her come back to a place of balance. Thank you all, everybody.